Okay, well, welcome everyone. We will get started. I want to invite you guys to Latino Built's virtual training, The Ins and Outs of Applying for PPP. I'm Leanna Petrone, the Executive Director of Latino Built, and I'm excited to facilitate this very needed, just out, time-sensitive training. If you would like to receive one CCB continuing education credit, would you send me a message? It can be a private message, that's fine, with your name, your company name, and email address, and we will get certificates for it out to you. And to keep an efficient flow of this training, please know that this presentation will be recorded. It is available on, and it will be available on our YouTube channel in the next few days following the presentation. Please stay on mute for the duration of this presentation. We'll open it up to some questions during that time, but while our speakers are speaking, please continue to stay on mute. If you do have questions while somebody is speaking that you would like to get to them right away, please use the chat feature for anything at that time. And then, of course, anything that doesn't get answered within the presentation, we will answer it out of the chat when we open up the floor to questions as well. It is now my pleasure to introduce our presenters today. So we have Jeremy McKibbin and we have Victor Saldana. As I say that hopefully correctly there, and I will open up the floor to them.
Oh, great, thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, so the purpose of this call is to share the nuances of the PPP round 2 in addition to what we anticipate the needs of the clients who maybe didn't apply the first time and the way that process looks. We also want to cover the requirements that the SBA is now they're now requiring for the round 2, meaning the 25% decrease in revenues, which we'll get into in more detail, and then also the 150 cutoff limit, which is very important. We also want to make sure we're covering the type of industries, entity types, because those do have an impact on the types of loans and the types of required documentation. So with that, I want to introduce Victor and have him share some of the things that we've done last time around with PPP and some of the successes we've seen.
Sure, thank you, Jeremy. And so the reason we're doing this is there was a lot of businesses that missed out on the first round, and I still got emails even in August when this actually ended for the first round of people saying I didn't have access to this. I ran out of the SBA ran out of money. That wasn't unfortunately true. There was still $138 billion left in August when this ended. Problem was a lot of people really didn't know that there was availability of funds. They didn't know how to access those funds. They didn't have that resource available for them. So that's what we're trying to get out there. I know between Jeremy and I, we've done over 120 PPP loans the last round. So we kept 120 businesses still open and going. And that's what we're really excited about, being able to help the businesses in our community, especially the minority businesses. They were really left out the first time around. The Portland Business Journal said within the first month, 88% of what I was actually taken advantage of was really done in white neighborhoods and white businesses. And that's what we saw, the disparity too. So that's what we're really trying to reach out to a lot of people. This will allow for a lot of people to take advantage of the first round if they missed out, because that is available for them. PPP round 2 is really designed for helping out minority business owners. So it's really capped at keeping it for the small business out there to be able to have access to the funds. And that's what we're really going to be talking about. There's a lot of information for what it could be done for different entities. We've worked with a lot of construction business owners, so we can answer those questions for you. If we don't have it done within this chat, please reach out to us and ask us, whether it's email, calling us. Jeremy and myself could help out, as well as Rudy. He can help out, especially in Spanish too, and be able to help out with any business owners. Anything else that you want to add in, Jeremy? I just a quick highlight. I know we did about 2,700 businesses for PPP that were $150,000 in loan amount, which was the number 6 lender in the state of Oregon, and then over 827 for 150,000 or above loans. So that was like number 3 in the state of Oregon. So luckily KeyBank does have the knowledge. So that's what we want to impart. We want to be able to answer those questions no matter where you're with, to be able to help you through the process. And so this is really more of an educational piece for everyone out there. Okay, Jeremy?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, the whole purpose is, like I said, to explain the requirements of the second time PPP loan application. I'm looking at the documents now, and again, the 25% is a layer that the SBA and actually the government has put in place to ensure that there is enough funding and it's actually going to those businesses that truly need it, which I think is great and very important. The as far as the entity types go, the documentation is obviously going to vary. Victor, I don't know if you have access to those slides.
I'm going to put up the just what to know slide, so I'm going to share that right now.
That's great, thank you. Perfect, thank you. So the second draw, so just so you guys know, there is two pieces to this puzzle here. For folks that applied on the first time and actually got PPP money, they are required and subject to the 25% decrease, and they have to abide by the 300 or fewer employees. That is the changes for the second round. However, if you didn't take money in the first round, you are not subject to provide the 25% documentation that proves that you took that decrease in revenue. So that's another benefit, again, for those that maybe didn't take advantage of it the first time, but maybe had a strong 2020. This is a great opportunity for them to take some advantage, because what we've seen, and this is my experience, is we've had some businesses that were doing really well, decided not to take money. However, there was a delay in their AR, which prevented them from being able to, it was extended from, say, 60 days to 120 days. Well, that did have an impact on their cash flow as well as the payroll services. So we wanted to make sure that, if you didn't take money, feel free to reach out to us and we can, kind of walk you through it and the reasons why it might be beneficial for you to take advantage of it. As far as the 25% goes, that only has to be in any quarter of 2020 compared to any quarter to the like quarter of 2019. So, you don't have to have a year-end loss or a year-end drop in revenues of 25%. It could be a combination of a year-end, or it could be any quarter. So that is definitely a benefit, because a lot of companies did see a hit in Q2, Q3, which means that that's a great opportunity for them to, refill that bucket that they lost in that quarter. As far as the 150, there is a new legislation that just came out, which I think is extremely important to explain. For those that have taken PPP loans the first time around, they that were under 150 or less, during the forgiveness process, they were requiring you to provide all documentation, and it wasn't a very streamlined process. So the legislation, the new bill actually reads that there's going to be a one-pager, which is great. So you don't have to provide the 941s and all the proof that, basically that use the PPP money for servicing your business. So it is a more streamlined process. And I will tell you that we were one of the first banks, one of the larger banks to actually start the PPP forgiveness process. And we figured it out. I mean, it's extremely streamlined. It was, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of clunky at the beginning, but we did figure it out. So the second time around for this PPP funding and forgiveness, I feel that KeyBank has done a great job of making sure that they found those pain points, they corrected the pain points so that we can ensure that we're getting those applications through in a timely manner so everyone who's applying can make sure that they're getting funded. We did hear from other folks that, you know, applied, but then, you know, the funds ran out the first time around. And then there was a second batch that came in. But we just want to make sure that, you know, clients understand that with every bank, it's going to be different. You know, you're going to have banks that are going to do paper applications. You're going to have banks that are going to do full automation and everything electronically. We are one of those banks that will do that electronic application. So it's very streamlined, very easy for us to process those in a timely manner. And that goes for both applications for PPP as well as forgiveness applications. So that is something that's a definite benefit for business owners. The goal, like I said, is to make sure that we're providing these services for businesses that like I said, either didn't take advantage of it or are seeing that decrease in revenue. We want to make sure that you guys are well taken care of. And like Victor says, we did see it in the minority business owners. They just didn't get a chance to take advantage of the opportunity. And a lot of it is because the information was it was so jumbled and very confusing. I mean, even as a banker doing this for 20 plus years, it was very difficult for me to weed everything through. So we wanted to make sure that we had something in line to help, you know, streamline the process, answer any questions that you have, regardless if you're doing a PPP loan with KeyBank or your other bank. We want to make sure that we're an advocate for you and make sure that we are also an advisor. So, you know, if you have any of those questions that do come up, we're able to answer those efficiently. So, anything you want to add, Victor?
Yes, so that's one of the things that we've gotten a lot of questions about. I've had people reach out to me and said, well, I didn't experience a 25% loss last year. I've heard 30%, 40%. I've heard different things amongst different business owners reaching out to us. Like Jeremy said, majority of our business owners in April, May, and June of last year during the second quarter were shut down. Very few businesses actually had an increase that quarter. So that's where you're going to see the majority of the business owners qualify. So when you're looking at a 25% loss in second quarter 2020 compared to the same quarter in 2019, that's a general rule of thumb. Yes, it could be any quarter. You know, as we start opening up back later on in the year, more business happened. But as you know, even in construction, people were not going out. We did not know about what was the safe requirements. There wasn't enough PPE equipment out there to be able to do it. So fear really did keep a lot of businesses locked down in those months. So that's where we're talking about. The IRS and the SBA have really set requirements as far as what the 25% is and how it's calculated. And the broad definition is a borrower must have experienced at least a 25% reduction in any quarter of 2020 compared to the same quarter of 2019. Revenue means gross receipts, which include all revenue in whatever form received or accrued in accordance with the borrower's accounting method. So just to keep it high level, what we know from especially the construction industry is like Jeremy said, the accounts receivable that were coming in really did slow down. A lot of business owners might have been shut down. A lot of construction sites were shut down those months. So even if you did get payout, it probably didn't happen until third or fourth quarter. So there was probably a lag in that period where you weren't receiving any type of payments coming in. So your gross receipts were down. That's where we're really focusing on. A lot of business owners, I know especially a lot of minority business owners, aren't getting the accurate information. I mean, I even personally was on a webinar where we had someone who had never done a PPP loan, but they were in the industry, explaining to people what the requirements were. If you go to the SBA website, there is a ton of information. There's unfortunately outdated information done in Spanish from October of last year, but nothing currently for the new PPP progress. Understandable. I know you can't create literature in every language out there. So that's where the minority business owner did fall behind on. So that's where we're trying to be kind of that extra piece of information for business owners. We're trying to get as much information out. We do want everyone out there, whether you're speaking Spanish or not speaking Spanish, to be able to pick up the phone and call in for your specific situation, because we don't want business owners to shut down. I can honestly say we have seen a lot of business owners, whether it's construction or other entities, actually shut down in 2020, and majority of them really had access to some funds out there, but didn't take advantage of it. There's also other resources out there too. I know we're really focusing on PPP right now, but the state of Oregon is actually coming out with rent release for $100 million coming out in February. So if there's business owners who maybe are behind on their rent payments, they can apply for that in February as well. I know there's cash flow issues that majority of business owners are facing too, and we want to be able to offer that as far as a webinar as well. And we'll be working with Latino Built to do that. But what we're really encouraging business owners to do is really do pick up the phone, do pick up that email and send it to us. And don't feel that it's going to prevent you from doing it. Having a dad who was a general contractor for 40 years, having come to the US as well, he was one of those individuals that was prideful, didn't really want to go out and ask for information. Unfortunately, that did hinder a lot of his business as he was working in California. That's where I'm very passionate and saying, don't let anything stop you from picking up that phone and asking. I can tell you this week alone, I've had 19 businesses who have told me, I don't believe I can qualify for it, and didn't want to even start the process and didn't feel comfortable being able to reach out to us and do that. So I do want to let every business owner know that please do pick up the phone, ask the right questions so we can get the right answers to you.
Absolutely. And the new PPP funding, there is breakdowns per industry. So certain industries are eligible to receive more funding. So that's where it's really important, like Victor says, to reach out to us so we can ensure that we fit you to the right area, the right funding amount. So I'm glad you touched on that. So with that, I think that well, I guess I'll stop there. Do we have any questions from any of the attendees?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
For a business, where do I start? Is it a phone call from you? Do I start with my own bank? Where do I start this process?
I think that you start where you feel comfortable. I mean, if you have a great relationship with your current financial institution, the first thing I would ask them is, are they going to be attend or participating in this program? That's the first step. If you feel like you want to get more, I can't speak again to other banks, but I know how Victor and I handled our clients from the first time around, and those that didn't have banking relationships. We filled a lot of calls, and we made sure that we were well armed, but there was no obligation whatsoever to have any kind of relationship keeping. We would love to help people, don't get us wrong. I mean, that's what we're here to do. But if you just have general questions and you want to get clarification or you want a second opinion, that's what we're here to do. Absolutely.
And I'll chime in on that too. You do have to have a banking relationship. So
yeah.
That's one of the things that I realized in the first round was a little difficult. There were people who didn't have a banking relationship or maybe had a banking relationship with an institution that wasn't offering the PPP. You do need to establish a banking relationship with the bank that you are going to be working with for the PPP, because you need to have the account opened. You need to have the funds available to be deposited into that account. Once it clears, you need the account opening for the entity information that will be needed for the SBA, as well as proof that it's been registered as a business with the state or with the city. There's all these requirements. So every bank can open up a business account, whether it has a business license, a contractor's license, whatever. even with us, I was actually talking to a business owner and he was concerned because he said, I don't have a social security number. That's not a concern. We've done things with the Mexican consulate about how to do that. I know Rudy on the phone has been very helpful for that too, with people who feel they don't feel comfortable opening it up. So those questions can be alleviated. Jeremy and I were also talking about this. If you feel comfortable talking to someone who speaks Spanish or English, feel free. There aren't that many Spanish speaking, unfortunately, bankers out there who deal with business banking. So that is a limitation. So ask around, everyone, even in the construction industry, has someone that they work with. They can say, hey, do I feel comfortable with this person? Do they speak my language to be able to answer those things with me correctly? There's a lot of research out there as far as what banks are doing it, what banks aren't, and how many they did. Rely on that. Unfortunately, the SBA also updates their information very quickly. I try to do my best on LinkedIn and reaching out to my clients to let them know. Originally, the SBA said PPP was starting this week. Earlier today, they sent out an update and said it's not starting until next week. Some of the smaller financial institutions are going to be starting Friday, but the rest of them are not going to be starting until Tuesday of next week. And again, these are just guidelines. So I've had a lot of worried clients that have reached out to me over the week saying, what's going on, and we're trying to do our best to keep them stress-free because we know everyone's anxious about this, to have the most up-to-date current information. And as things change, we want to be able to present that information to them too.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that once you apply with a financial institution and you start that path, it's very difficult to start with another financial institution. So my suggestion, and I learned this last time around, make sure that you understand what their process is, how efficient they are. The last thing you want is your application to get hung up on the system and in the system. So those are the types of questions I would be asking your current financial institution.
And the only other thing on that is if you've applied for one financial institution and for round one, you can apply for another financial institution in round two.
Yes.
We've actually had that question asked. I actually had a business ask me earlier today. They said the financial institution I was working with really drew it out. It was hard process. Can I apply with KeyBank? I said, yes, you can apply with any other financial institution for round two as you want to. They're going to ask for the same information that you are doing for round one, just because they also need it for round two, just like any bank would ask for round two. Feel free to have that information readily available. There are specific documents depending on business type. So different entities, whether they're not-for-profit, limited liability, partnership, they all have their own specific requirements for what they need for round one and then round two. Any one of the institutions can get that out to you fairly quickly, get the process rolling fairly quickly. But you do want to have that set up and started as quickly as possible, because as we know, it's going to start here next week. And just to throw it out there, yes, the funds are less this time around, but it's also designed really for smaller businesses this time around. So not to stress out and think that funds aren't going to be available and then just stop doing it. That's what happened to a lot of minority business owners the first time around, and that's what we don't want to happen. Again, 138 billion was left over in August when this first thing ended, and I still to this day get calls from people saying I missed out on the first round because they were out of money. Just didn't happen.
Yeah.
I want to open it up to the floor. I have a couple more questions, but I want to first see if anybody else has some questions they would like to ask. Just unmute yourself and ask away. So here's one in the chat. So even if the business has the bank account in another bank, they can do the process with KeyBank?
Yes, as long as we get an account established. The reason why we have to have an account established is from a compliance standpoint. So it's actually a federal regulation that we have to abide by. So yeah, we would need to get an account established before you can apply. But trust me, it's a very simple process, very easy, very streamlined. And I think Victor can attest to that.
Yeah. To clarify,
we've
a
done.
business account?
Yes.
A business account for your business that you're applying for this loan. Okay.
Yes, so business account in the same name as the business and the same tax identification number, because it has to match exactly the same for the PPP loan, and the SBA has to approve it. That's what's going to go through.
We have another question in the chat. When can you apply for the PPP loan? When is it available for business?
So I'm glad you asked, because I literally just received an email from my manager, who received an email from the business development officer who's heading this up. And he said that we should be accepting applications on Tuesday as KeyBank. Like Victor said, smaller institutions may be processing applications on Friday. If you're getting notification that they're taking the application now, they're probably taking the application, but they're not submitting the application, because the portal for the SBA is not open for the banks to be able to provide those. So I just want to make sure we're hearing conflicting information from other financial institutions.
Exactly, and that's where we're talking about do your research, because I can honestly tell you I had a few Latino built business owners reach out to me on the last round, and they had paper applications in or system applications in that were still in early, but didn't even get approved until very late. Look at the track record. Don't stress yourself out. Don't stress your business out. Make sure you're doing your research as you're doing these applications, just because, as Jeremy said, it's really hard once you start somewhere to finish it or do it somewhere else. So make sure that the institution you're doing it is the right institution for yourself. I know there's a lot of online places too that are sending out mixed messages out there. So really do it. I will say it's a lot easier to have someone that you can pick up the phone and call or email than to do it somewhere that you might not have access to those. We did see a lot of that in the first round, that you can Google search out there. There were a lot of online financial institutions that were accepting applications, but there were also a lot that unfortunately didn't process them through correctly. And businesses were waiting and waiting and waiting for months. And then it just didn't happen. So that's where you really want to, kind of like if I'm buying a TV or something like that, or even if I'm looking at for a construction business owner to do home improvements, I do a little bit of research. So same thing with business owners, they should do a little bit of research and make sure that the financial institution that they're working with is going to be there to answer those questions and work with them throughout the process.
Yeah.
So the first round was a race to the starting line for it. What does it look like this time? I mean, for people maybe in this call, they call you tomorrow and say, like, what do I need for my documents to have prepared? Are you accepting applications on Tuesday? Does that mean I can start the process tomorrow? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. Since we do everything via email, right? So it's a link that we provide to our clients or the applicant. We don't collect a paper app. So first thing we would need to do is, if a client doesn't want to go through KeyBank, we would need to open an account for them. Then what will happen is they will receive a link, and then that gives them the ability to apply for the application or apply the application, and then upload the documentation. Then it gets sent to an underwriter, and then funding is usually, what would you say, 48 hours after approval in some cases?
Yes, it happened quickly the first time around. So,
but you're absolutely right. It is a race. It was a race the first time. This time, I feel like, they put some, like I said, qualifications in there and limitations. So there was a $10 million cap, right? The $10 million cap on the first time around. Now there's $1 million cap. There was 400 employees. You had to have at least, or a maximum 400 employees. Now you have to have a max of 300 employees. So there, and then obviously with the restrictions on the 25%. So there are some fail safes in place to, in my opinion, I feel like we're going to have additional funds, and there's going to be plenty of funding throughout the process. But yeah, you're right, it was a race.
Yes, and what we're doing is, like, for every entity type, there is a set of requirements for the application. What we've done, I know Jeremy and I was just joking with him. He's been getting like 70 emails a day from business clients, but I've been getting lots of calls. And what I do is I find out their type of industry, their type of business. I send them an email with exactly what they'll need in advance. So by Tuesday, when this is all ready to go, they have everything ready. They are ready to go with it. It's not the sprint as it was last time. And I think a lot less people are really going to be applying this time just because of misinformation as well. I'm just this week alone, I can tell you, I had to talk to 19 clients who didn't think that they qualified, who did qualify, and tell them that they did qualify based on the requirements. So there's still a lot of misinformation out there. So we're still going to see a lot of clients who aren't going to apply, business owners who will miss out on this because they don't know the specifics behind it. And it's going to be a shame because like I said, you know, minority business owners miss out on a lot because the information out there is not up to date and not available in the languages that they need sometimes. They don't have the people that they can reach out to get the correct information. So they're just going to say, listen, I had no, last year I might have been down 20%. So I'm not going to apply because I wasn't down 25%. They can if they miss it in a quarter, but they don't know that. So I still get that question a lot, and I do believe it won't be a sprint, even though everyone really does want to get into the application. I'm telling people, don't stress out, wait for it, make sure you have everything ready to go, have that account opened up, and then it will be a smooth process as long as the institution you're working with is going to help you through the process.
Victor, I really like that. I think that is so important for our community and our members to know that they do need to come in and sit down with you or Jeremy or someone and really have that conversation about whether or not they qualify. Because sometimes they'll just write it off without really knowing the answer. So I also implore you guys to also get in there and make sure that you truly find a definite answer, whether it is or that you don't. That's something I definitely recommend. One other question is because I'm going to put you guys on the spot here. So we're construction contractors for the most part. We have different people in our membership, but for the most part, we're construction contractors. What do you guys feel that is the most important things that they have prepared, or what documentation or documentation for a construction contractor?
So for the PPP loan, I would say the financials, business financials, to reflect the 25% decrease. You know, most contractors, they have a payroll provider, and the payroll provider has been great at providing the documentation that's needed on the payroll side, so the 941s, as well as the ledgers. So for me, I would stress the importance of making sure that you have that information showing that 25% decrease.
We have a question in the chat, and it says, can you provide contact information so we can send applicants directly your way if needed? So if you guys could put your contact information in the chat as well, so they can grab it from there.
We can, and I'll break it down just because different one of us does different things. Jeremy works with business owners 3 million and more in revenue per year. I'm 3 million and under. Rudy is also 3 million and under, but can help Jeremy facilitate if they need Spanish speaking to do it 3 million and over as well. But I will put all that information, phone, email, direct lines for us. That way, if you do have questions, don't hesitate to pick up the phone, because again, this is just to make sure that we're answering questions for every client, every business owner, so they're not missing out. And you know, the best thing that we can do out there right now is to make sure that we're fulfilling the requirement for PPP round 2, because it really is designed for minority business owners. I mean, if you look at some of the requirements that they've put in, the special dollars that they've put aside 25 and $15 billion just for small business owners. So 15 billion for smaller first-time borrowers in low-income areas with 10 or fewer employees or loans of less than 250,000, and then 25 billion for second draw PPP loans for small business owners in low income areas with 10 fewer employees or loans less than 250,000. So there are specific requirements in this for minority and small business owners. So really do take the time and take advantage of the funds itself, just because we know that it's it's going to be out there and available. And if you don't take it, another business is, and we want everyone to have equal shot at this.
Yeah.
What other questions do people have? So I also want to, if you guys miss the information or if you log off without being able to copy it and this and that, you can always reach out to Latino Build. So with myself or Dulce, anybody, we will also get back to you and send you that information so that you can get a hold of them. Oh, great question. Rosa had a question and she says, what's the timeline for processing an application?
So again, I can only speak to KeyBank, right? So our process is pretty quick. I would say once you get an application submitted, it will go into a queue for an underwriter, and that takes probably 24 to 48 hours. I'd probably say 48 hours on the front end. Once it gets assigned to the SBA or to our underwriter, then it will go into a queue to be submitted, because we're a preferred lender for the SBA, so we can approve these loans. So that's the added benefit. So once it's approved, then we go ahead and apply it to the SBA system. Once it's on the SBA system, it's usually 48 hours to 72 hours for it to be funded into the account once it's in the SBA. I'm trying to think of what they call it, the bots. I was one of those lucky ones was able to help out and put those into the SBA site. And I will tell you, the process is pretty quick from our end. So I would say if you applied, you would probably have funding in a week.
Great. There is another question from Andrea, and is the form the one on the SBA website? So
here's the thing. Again, that is a great question. I just heard that they are updating that form that's on the website. Now, we modify that form to put it in an online format. So again, I can only speak to KeyBank, of course. So our format is, the application form is online. So we're going to send you a link to fill out the form, and then we're going to process it into the SBA. Now, there are some financial institutions, some of the smaller, that don't have the infrastructure to be able to do that or convert it. So they would have you fill out that form, but there was also forms that they're going to need to fill out, need to have you fill out on their end. So again, I can't speak to it. I just know from my conversations with other business owners and what they experience. So again, my recommendation is reach out to a bank, reach out to your bank, or reach out to Victor or myself or Rudy, and then let us help you. Because the last thing I would encourage you to do is fill out this form, and then the form is invalid and you have to reapply. It's just a waste of time for you, and your time is valuable elsewhere.
And I can chime in on that as well. The online portal that most financial institutions, especially if they're a preferred lender, have is pretty easy. It basically, it tells you what you need to fill in. You fill in that portion, then you move on to the next portion, and you fill it in, you move on. It is very simple to do. I do say to business owners, use that SBA form as a guideline, just because, like Jeremy said, they do update those a lot. So it's best to just use it as a guideline. Yes, it will have most of the information. So if you do have some of that information on there, or you see it and you say, hey, I need to find this information, whether it's from my payroll company or from my 941s, get that, then you know exactly what information you need. But once you're filling out that application online, it's pretty straightforward and simple, and you just go step by step through it and submit it and upload the docs, and you're good to go.
Great. This next question, I'm going to piggyback a little bit on it. This is from Franz, and he said, is there any interest on the loan? And before you answer that, I also want to piggyback a little bit on there. There was a portion of the previous PPP that was forgivable. So is there interest, and what's the timeline for paying back, and is there a forgivable portion of it?
Yeah, so I'm that's actually a really good question. From my understanding, it is 100% a grant, so it would be forgivable. The period, if you recall, the first time around, it was 8 weeks, and then they realized, oh, 8 weeks is not enough. So now we're going to extend it to 24 weeks. This time around, it's 24 weeks. So it's just cut and dry. 24 weeks is the period. So honestly, a majority, with the amount of money that you would receive, again, depending on the industry, I can't stress that enough, depending on the industry, with the amount of money that you receive, you should have 100% forgiveness over that 24-week period.
Yes, and I will agree with it. And I will tell you, if you haven't done the forgiveness yet for your first round, they did increase the categories. So I know a lot of the business owners took advantage and it was 100% forgivable, but they've included what is included in the first round. And so they've added a lot of items that if you haven't requested for forgiveness, you can look at additional items that are covered in that. The new categories are covered operating expenditures, covered property damage, covered supplier costs, covered workers' protection expenditures. So there's a lot of more things that have been added on recently. So if you didn't get to the 100% on the first round, which I can tell you just from experience between Jeremy and I, majority of the clients did take advantage of the full 100%. They did increase that for what you can request for forgiveness.
Maybe Victor, do you guys have the rough little items that how they qualify for forgiveness? So it's like 85% has to be used on payroll, and they actually have to be payroll, like actual employees, not contractors. Do you have a quick little recap of that?
I don't have a quick recap of that, but I can get it to you guys. Because they did change it, and like the fluidity with the SBA, they did want to continuously expand it to allow for more things, because they did feel there were a lot of business owners who were worried about what was covered and what wasn't covered. So when the SBA came back our second time around and increased it from the 8 weeks to 24 weeks, they did allow for it. I will say that not only the information that we can provide for you, CPAs can go into those specific things, because I know they're for tax requirements, what can be allowed as well. I always tell people CPA is always going to be a great resource for you. Your payroll company is going to be a great resource for you, because they're going to have some of this information. Also, the SBA does allow for local resources. So there is a link from the SBA website, because no one wants to wait on the phone for 6 hours to talk to someone from the SBA, but there are local resources. So if you just did SBA.com local resources, you could put in your zip code and you get someone from the local area, just like Score PDX, which I've volunteered with in the past. They do have resources in the area that would be able to answer specific questions. Doesn't cost the business owner any money. They do have people who will do legal advice for their business associated with the PPP, accounting advice, things like that. So we want to know that, let people know that there are lots of resources out there that they don't have to pay for, that they can get the information that they need. But yes, if they have specific questions for theirs as far as what was covered, if they email either me, Jeremy, or Rudy, we can always get that specifically for their business. Because like you said, contract, employee, 100,000 or more employee, expenditures for the business, there's a lot of things that fall into it. So it really does define it for the business type, and we can help that business type.
Yep.
One more question on that same kind of topic. What if they don't end up qualifying for the forgiveness for it? What are the interest rates on the loan?
So from my understanding, if you don't qualify, you wouldn't be able to get the loan. It's strictly viewed upon as a stimulus program. So it's really to help those that do need it. And that's, yeah, unfortunately, from what I'm seeing, in fact, I had this conversation with a client yesterday. There is no, if you qualify and you don't qualify for the forgiveness, then a portion that could turn into a loan. But in order to get it, you have to make sure that you meet all those matrix.
Yeah, and if you didn't qualify for the full forgiveness, it was 1%. And it was based off of how the term was, based off of when you applied and got the funds for it. So let's just say, like Jeremy said, a majority, I personally can tell you a majority of our clients qualified for 100%. But let's just say that they didn't and they still owed a little bit left over because certain things weren't part of that. That's still a low interest rate loan. I mean, you're not finding a 1% out there for anyone. So it is good to be able to do that. And the term to pay back was long. And even for when the first payment comes into place, majority of the people who took the loan out in April, they're not starting to pay their first payment until August or September of this year. So they did have that whole period. So, you know, even the businesses who took advantage of the first round who were stressed out about the forgiveness process, they still have a lot of time. So I've been telling them, listen, don't worry about the forgiveness right now. Worry about the PPP, the second round or the first round, and take care of that. And then once that's been taken care of, once the updated information for forgiveness under 150,000 is out there, then let's look at that. But your institution will follow through with that and make sure that you're taken care of.
Yeah, and I would also encourage you, again, I reached out to a client yesterday. I would encourage you to reach out to find any grant opportunities that the state may be offering. I know there's a couple of them out there. That is another benefit that could help your business achieve some aid, I guess, during these times.
And I know Latino Built does a great job of posting that information on the website too. I've actually sent some of my business owners to that website to see it, but they're always coming up with new things, like the $100 million for rent relief for a commercial property. Majority of people didn't know about that. That's coming up in February. So really do rely on those financial experts to be that beacon of hope for you, because there are unfortunately, there's a lot of limitations for those grants too, but you know, as long as you're applying for them, every county had something, even every city had something. Beaverton, Hillsborough, Washington County, Portland, organizations like Prosper Portland, they all had something available for people. So do look for those resources out there, because there were a lot out there. And again, not for a lot of the minority business owners, because a lot of them missed out on it, but there are a good amount of resources available.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. So we have two more quick questions and we'll have to wrap it up. Can your business apply for this round too, even if they are in the process of the forgiveness application from round one, but it has not yet completed it? And the recommendation is that the business owner waits for the new simplified version of forgiveness of the forgiveness application. In the meantime, can they apply for round two?
Yes, the answer is yes. If it's one of our clients, what we're doing is we're asking them to withdraw their forgiveness application and then just pushing it through at the completion of the second round. But yes, you're absolutely right. You can apply for round two even if you're on you're working through the forgiveness process currently. So there's no hang up there.
Okay, and then we have this last question, or if there's anybody else, stick them in the chat really quickly and we'll answer them. If your business does not have any payroll, can you still apply and get a PPP loan?
Yes, I'm assuming you're probably referring to a sole prop. So yeah, sole props, they can apply for PPP. There are different limitations. So my advice is to call Rudy or Victor to understand what those limitations are, or those required documentation. They are different for sure.
Okay, any last questions? Okay, I'm going to share my screen this one last time. Well, I mean, we couldn't be more thankful to have KeyBank and Victor and Jeremy here presenting on this information. Thank you so much. We're really excited to be able to have you guys there as a resource for us and our members in our community. So take this time, if you haven't already, please contact us, follow us, like us on all our social channels. Like Victor had pointed out, on our website at www.latinobuilt.com. We have a plethora of information. We have a safety page. We have a COVID relief page. We have it all there. If you don't find what you're looking for, give us a call, give us an email. We want to hear from you. And on that, one last big thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.